In 2009, 3 daughters and a wife were found submerged underwater in Canada in what became a story that rocked a nation. This is the case of the Shafia family murders. And what nobody on YouTube has done is explain to you why this crime happened. The suspects in this case is Mohammed Shafia, who is the father of 3 of the victims, his second wife, Tooba Yahya, and their eldest son, Hamid. The victims themselves were 19-year-old Zainab, 17-year-old Sahar, 13-year-old Geeti, and finally Rona Omar, the first wife of Mohammed, who was 52. Now, this was a family of Afghan origin. I am of Pakistani origin. They were Muslim. I myself am a practicing Muslim. Their cultural customs and the way I was raised are very similar. So the moment I heard about this case, I knew straight away this bastard Mohammed only cared about one thing, and that is pride. Now let's start with their backgrounds. In 1980, Mohammed Shafia married Rona Mohammed. However, she was infertile and unable to have children. So in 1989, he took Tooba to be his second wife in a polygamous marriage. Tooba gave birth to 7 children. Though Rona played a crucial role in their upbringing and raised the children as if they were her own, when the family immigrated to Canada, Rona was presented as an aunt. The reason she wasn't presented as a second wife, well, number 1, it's illegal in Canada from what I know, and number 2, it's just a bit funny, isn't it? Second wife, what the bloody hell's going on here, chap? But do understand though, Rona was the one who encouraged Mohammed to get a second wife. She even helped him pick the wife as they needed to have children. So the Shafia family immigrated into Canada and settled in Montreal in 2007. Rona, however, was trapped in an abusive, loveless marriage, trying in vain to convince her husband to grant her a divorce. Rona's siblings claimed that she feared for her life during the days leading up to her death. Tooba, the second wife, allegedly said to Rona, "You are a slave, you are a servant." Reportedly, the Shafias held all of Rona's identity documents, including her passport, before Mohammed and his family fleeing the Afghan war and everything that came after it. Coming to Canada became a curse. You see, Mohammed was dismayed when it was discovered that the oldest daughter Zainab had taken a Pakistani boyfriend. And this is where I come in to explain why he was so mad. He wasn't necessarily upset she was dating a boy. I mean, in South Asian, Middle Eastern culture, it is frowned upon a little. But to be dating, maybe even fornicating outside of marriage, this does upset the elders. But his main hang-up wasn't this. His hang-up was that she was dating a Pakistani boy. And you must understand, in this specific area of the world, South Asia, nationalism, tribalism, sectarianism is rife. For example, if you live in America or Britain and your son or daughter want to marry a girl from Iceland or whatever, you'd be like, okay, as long as she's a good girl, right? However, in this part of the world, in South Asia, where you are from and your ethnicity holds as much value as what kind of person you are. Remember, this family were Afghans and their ethnicity in general is Pashtun. The boyfriend was Pakistani, so he would have been a Punjabi, like me, slightly darker skinned, brown, whereas if you look at Zainab, she's light skinned. My origins come from India, right? That's my ethnicity if you go back further enough. Their ethnicity, this family, are Afghans, and then before that, Persians, Iran, etc. Hence, the fairer, lighter skin. This is important because if you bring this kind of backward village mentality to Canada, right, you're asking for trouble, as I'm about to tell you. You see, Zainab, who wanted to marry this boyfriend, was upset that her father did not approve. But by the time Mohammed returned from a business trip, Zainab married her boyfriend. However, the marriage was annulled after just one day. What's crazy about all of this is that Mohammed himself had earlier plotted to murder Zainab by drowning her. He suggested to his uncle, an uncle of his in Sweden, why don't we come over there, we'll go on vacation, and then I will kill her. What? And he must be asking, why would he kill her? Don't worry, I'm coming to all of that more. Mohammed also claimed he had no idea that his other daughter Sahar had a boyfriend too, not until he discovered pictures while tidying up the house, in preparation for relatives arriving to attend the victims' funerals. Those photos, showing Sahar in a miniskirt in the embrace of a young man, sent him into a tirade. You see, Mohammed would have preferred that Sahar told him about her relationship so that he could have arranged for her marriage. It was only after the deaths that Mohammed said he became aware of the extent of his daughter's secret life. He was only vaguely aware of his 13-year-old Geeti's escalating difficulties in school as well. The child's truancy and discipline issues had required that both parents attend meetings at school. And this is an indication of Mohammed's mindset. You see, to him, his girls are messing around with other men without his permission. And he is afraid that if anyone in the community or back home find out, they're going to ridicule him and they're going to look down on him. Now do you see it? The reason why he's pissed off is nothing to do with modesty or religion or keeping your daughter safe. No. This is all about pride and public opinion. He cared more about what people think about him than the sanctity of his daughters. As for Tooba, she characterized the household as relatively liberal, with no rules preventing the women from wearing makeup, and no obligation to don the traditional headscarf except during prayers. Prescriptions against taking boyfriends had been established on a trip to Dubai. They decided that until the children graduated, they are not to have any girlfriend or boyfriend or get married. And just this bit, I understand. They're saying, look, just finish your education. After that, do what you want. That bit, I kind of get. By the way, if you can, please follow me on Instagram. My previous Instagram was removed, so this is my new one. Link is in the description. Yet Tooba was the one that agreed to organize Zainab's marriage to, the aforementioned Pakistani man, even though they considered him unsuitable. Now we come on to Hamid. He is the brother, but he's also the third suspect. He himself was quite the disciplinarian. If his sisters came home late, he would scorn them and even abuse them like they're little children. Yes, let me repeat, he would physically assault them, because if his sisters were seen out and about late at night, oh my God, what are people going to think? They're going to say so much things about our daughters. I can't allow that to happen. I can't have my sisters to be out at night. That's the mentality. I mean, think about it. If your child or whoever is out late and they come home a little bit late, sure, you're upset for their safety. You might tell them, okay, next time just let me know where you are, but you're not going to abuse them. You understand? What kind of stupid shit is this? In fact, a call to the police was placed in April 2009 because the children were afraid. They were afraid of what would happen once their father knew Zainab had run away from home. When police arrived, Geeti did not hesitate to tell them that a week earlier they got home late, and Mohammed pulled her hair and abused her face. He often threatened them, she told police. Her older brother Hamid had also abused her before. When Mohammed came home that night, the children climbed up and one of them recanted the story. The police constable on scene believed there was enough evidence to support a criminal charge of abuse, but that decision lay in the hands of child welfare authorities and nothing ever happened. Geeti, however, repeated the story to a detective who interviewed her at school the following Monday, although this time she was more evasive. Geeti told the detective she wanted to get out of the house. She wanted to be placed immediately with the foster family. She said she had no freedom. She wanted to be like her friends. She wanted to go out. The detective could not gather enough evidence to support a charge. The file was closed. And this is where parenting comes in, right? As someone who's from a similar background, right, and knowing the mentality of these people, the reason why these girls felt so alone, it wasn't necessarily the restrictions, it's because their father never sat down with them and became their friend. You understand what I'm saying? Of course, let them out, let them do whatever they want. They're gonna make mistakes, but you're supposed to be their friend, especially in the teenage years when emotions can be very fragile. You understand what I'm saying? All of this, however, wasn't the end of Geeti's agitations to leave the household. Her emotions resurfaced a month later at school when she was crying and begging to be removed from the family home. She was crying because she didn't know what to do anymore. Apparently, Geeti and Sahar had hatched a plan to run away together. There had already been a meeting at school at the end of April about the problems. School officials were worried because of the discipline issues and also the allegations of abuse at home. Geeti wrote to her sister, "Dear Sahar, I don't know what I'm going to do if you leave the house one day. I promise that before I die, I'm going to make sure that all your wishes come true. I wish that we are never separated." You see, in Mohammed's mind, the sisters were rebellious. They were dressing in a Western style and provocative clothing, taking unauthorized boyfriends. Zainab wanted to get married. They all wanted out of the house. I mean, what the fuck? And this is a huge problem in these communities. They force their kids to adhere to some cultural policy without ever explaining why it's right or why it's wrong. Again, all they care about is what other people think of them. As for Sahar, she did find love with a boy. His name was Ricardo Sanchez. He was neither Afghan nor Muslim and therefore utterly unacceptable to her parents. He was an immigrant from Honduras, spoke no French and little English. Yet they managed to communicate, finding in each other a soulmate. By the way, the French is important because, of course, they live in Montreal. Sahar and Ricardo dated for 4 months. They had planned an elopement to seek refuge with Ricardo's family in Honduras. Sahar had actually contemplated revealing all to her father during a vacation in Niagara Falls, but Ricardo said no. She should wait for that announcement until they get back to Montreal. Of course, she never got the chance to tell her father. Then there was friction between the mother and daughter, the mother being Tooba, because Tooba decided it was time Sahar donned the hijab. Sahar herself, though, did not want to wear the head covering. She particularly did not want to wear it to school. And again, this is so stupid because number one, yes, in Islam, the woman is obligated to wear some kind of head covering. You know this one that you see in the middle of the face? That's purely a cultural practice, right? If you go to Turkey, you get one kind of headscarf. If you go to Pakistan, you get a different kind of headscarf. If you go to Indonesia, you get a different kind of headscarf, right? So there's different variations. All of them are completely fine. In any case, you cannot force a woman to wear it. That goes against everything Islam says. I'm telling you this as a Muslim. Whether you agree or not, I'm just telling you the situation, right? Furthermore, though, and I think this is more important, if the mother's not wearing it, why is she asking the daughter to wear it? Do you not see the hypocrisy there? Tooba and Mohammed were barely religious. They don't pray 5 times a day like you're supposed to, right? And of course, you can be Muslim and not be that religious, right? But if you are going to tell your daughter to wear the hijab, that suggests religious intent. How is she going to do it when you don't even do it? And in any case, in any religion, right, do you really think it's okay to abuse your child for not adhering to this? It's just madness. Of course, the only reason Tooba wanted her daughter to wear it is then she can show people, look at my daughter, look at the way I raised her, look at this obedient religious child. You understand now why I said pride and vanity? This hypocrisy really makes my dick itch. Furthermore, twice, school staff were so alarmed about what Sahar was telling them about her home life that they called Youth Protection Services. The first time a call was made, in May of 2008, teachers feared Sahar was being subjected to physical violence. She complained about being assaulted with a pair of scissors. But Sahar would not speak to the counselor summoned after being informed that their conversation would be relayed to her parents. Her parents and Hamid denied any ill treatment of Sahar or her siblings, though Hamid acknowledged Sahar was not happy with Tooba's decision that the two oldest girls should wear the hijab. In fact, in a further instance a year later, Sahar told her teacher she was afraid of her father, who was about to return from a business trip abroad. Specifically, Sahar was in a state of high anxiety that Mohammed had learned of her relationship with Ricardo. Child protection authorities were contacted again. The call was made June the 5th, only 25 days before Sahar's death. The social worker who saw her on that date told court that Sahar had disclosed her hopes of renting an apartment. She was asking for money so she could leave her home and settle somewhere else. She was submitted to a lot of control by her older brother. He wanted her to wear the veil, he wanted to pick her friends. And I swear to God, he's in prison right now. I'm going to come on to the crime that actually happened. Hamid was in prison right now, but I'm telling you, if I saw him walking down the street, brother, what a fucking dickhead, wouldn't you all agree? He wanted to pick her friends. This bastard probably never had any friends himself. So, now that I've explained the background of the family, now let me tell you what happened when they died. So the family went on a trip to Niagara Falls, and it's still a little unclear what happened, but the events take place on June the 30th, 2009. You see, a Nissan was found in an unusual location at the picturesque Kingston Mills Locks. The car was wedged into a small space in shallow water. The police diver who swam to the bottom of the canal, in there he found Zainab in the front passenger seat, her face slumped forward, her black cardigan drenched after hours underwater, and it was on backwards. Sahar was in the rear of the Nissan, dressed in a pair of tight jeans and a sleeveless top. Sahar was within reach of her cell phone, about to become a crucial clue for investigators. Geeti's lifeless body was floating over the driver's seat, one arm wrapped around the headrest, the window beside her wide open. Rona was slouched in the middle back seat, her soaked black hair rubbing against Sahar's. You see, the family went together, checked out of the Days Inn on June the 29th, 2009. A surveillance camera in the lobby recorded Hamid paying the bill for both rooms. Two cars left. There was a Lexus and a Nissan. Prosecutors believe Mohammed was behind the wheel of the Nissan. They went right past all of the major exits for Kingston, the ones full of signs for hotels and fast food. Now on Highway 15, the city's final off-ramp, they turned north and steered toward the locks. It was almost 1:30 in the morning. The Nissan passengers were in various states of sleep as they pulled into the Mills parking lot. Mohammed got out of the Nissan and Tooba got in. It was her job to stay with the four corpses to be while her husband and son went looking for a motel. The girls would have no reason to be suspicious, no reason to run. They were with their mother after all. The exact location remains a mystery, but somewhere at that secluded lock station, the four women were held underwater one by one until they stopped moving. Three of them had bruises on the top of their heads, suggesting some kind of injury in those final moments. Dead or at least unconscious, the bodies were piled back inside the Nissan. The idea was to stage a traffic accident to convince the cops that they were dealing with a tragic, late-night joyride. Once in position, the driver left the engine running, got out, reached to the open driver's side window, and moved the gear shift into first, assuming on its own power that the car would plunge over the concrete lip and into the water. However, the front wheels went over the ledge, but nothing else. The car would not move. One of the three reached through the window and turned off the ignition, the three being Mohammed, Tooba, and Hamid. At this point, they only had a choice: to drive the Lexus into the Nissan, so then the Nissan would end up in the water. However, the collision shattered some of the Lexus's headlight and it left bits of plastic on the ground. Before speeding away, the killers scrambled to pick up each of the broken shards. So let me repeat. At some point, they drowned the girls. It's unclear where, right? But from the coroner's report and the injuries to the head, all 4 women were drowned. Then they were placed in a car to make it look like it was some kind of random accident. So they got one of the girls, put her foot on the accelerator, right? And as the car was going, it wouldn't go any further, it stopped. So the only way they could push the car into the water was by ramming the Lexus into it. So then, after this, Hamid, Mohammed and Tooba showed up at the police station to file a missing persons report. Their initial stories were all the same. They went on a road trip and they split between 2 cars. Mohammed, Tooba and Hamid all told the detective that they had stopped at a Kingston motel on the way home to Montreal and that Zainab grabbed the car keys to retrieve some clothes. The next morning, the Nissan and nearly half the family were gone. And that's it. I don't know anything else, Mohammed said. So when the bodies were taken to the medical examiner, Dr. Milroy, he saw all the bruises I previously mentioned. And he also saw that Zainab had the same bruises and found it unusual that all 3 people would have similar injuries. And then at the crime scene, police found those broken bits of plastic I mentioned. So at that moment, they went to Mohammed's house in Montreal and looked at the Lexus SUV. The SUV had bits of plastic missing in the front lights. They also found bits of broken plastic in the trunk. And they made the connection and they considered this a homicide. Now a week later, just 17 days after the women died, a judge authorized the use of wiretaps. And over the next 3 days, police would record Mohammed cursing his dead daughters and basking in their demise. During another conversation, Tooba agreed that Zainab was already done, but wished the other 2, Sahar and Geeti, were still alive. Mohammed replied saying, "No Tooba, they all messed up." And as the police are listening to this all on the wiretap, they had had enough. The next afternoon, officers arrived at their house with a full search warrant. So they began seizing evidence: phone bills, passports, Rona's diary, Hamid's black suitcase. In his bedroom, they found essays about how he wants to control women, etc., etc. In fact, with these wiretaps, they also realized Hamid was on the cell phone. It was with another brother of his, and his brother said, "Look Hamid, you are 100% caught." So when the police went to interview other family members, they all made it clear that yes, it was Tooba, Mohammed and Hamid who did this. They were the ones responsible. So with all the evidence gathered from the house and the wiretaps and the testimony from the other family members, they were all found guilty of first-degree murder and they were sentenced to life without parole for 25 years. Now, the reason why I took it upon me to make this video is because I know a lot of you live in America, you live in the West. There's so many stories you hear in the media about what goes on in the Middle East and I guess you could say the Muslim world, right? Honor killings, this is what it was classed as, but honor killings, when you hear them, you guys are all confused. Why did this happen? Because it only seems to be a phenomenon from that part of the world, right? Well, honor killings are all about pride, ego, and vanity. Many of you will comment saying, this should not be called an honor killing because there's nothing honorable. Yes, but that's not the point. The point is that the suspect finds their honor being questioned, so then they commit murder. Again, fucking stupid. And by honor, in this case, it's literally what the community or what the public will think of them. The closest thing to help you understand in the Western world is when you call it a crime of passion. If you have a boyfriend or a husband who murders their spouse, right, because she cheated on them, right, his honor, right, his emotions are now being questioned, so he lashes out. It's not an exact like for like, because no two situations in life are the same, but that's the best way I can explain it. So I took it upon myself to 1, explain this story, right, 2, why it happened, and 3, tell people, stop doing this shit. Nobody cares about your honor. Nobody cares about who you are. I've traveled around this area of the world. I've been to Pakistan 6 times. I've been to Morocco. I've been to Dubai. I've been to Turkey. 99% of the day is no different than living here in America. But then you get people like this who just act like dickheads. And I guess all I can do is that when my son or my daughter grow up and they make mistakes, my job is not to condemn them. My job is not to ridicule them, to push them away. My job is to be their friend. Anyway, comment. Tell me what you think.